And let's understand where we are right now. We're not just talking about Israel responding to October 7th. Hezbollah doesn't maintain any Israeli hostages or prisoners of war. There's none in Lebanon. Israel is destroying Lebanon and moving towards a direct confrontation with Iran. Netanyahu has sworn to attack Iranian infrastructure, oil infrastructure, which would wreck the global economy. And the Biden administration is on board with this. I mean, we used to rail against, and I remember liberals used to rail against the Bush administration in 2006 for supporting Israel's war in Lebanon. There was no support among the Democrats, on the Democratic base for that. And now Biden is openly discussing working with Israel to wage a terror attack on Iran's critical energy infrastructure, which would raise the price of oil further than it's already gone. Actually, oil spiked as a result of Biden's comments. I don't know if like Nancy Pelosi told him to do this because she had some inside stock deals on Brent crude or something. But what is he? I mean, what is he thinking? We shouldn't even ask that.
What are you considering on Iran? What kind of sanctions are you considering?
I'll tell them before I tell you.
Any hostages in Gaza? Do you have any updates on them?
Not right now.
And I'm the observer.
Would you support Israel striking Iran's oil facilities, sir? Someone asks I don't know if they're trying to push him or not.
Sir?
We're in discussion with that. I think that would be a little, anyway.
So will you let Israel retaliate? What are the plans to allow Israel to strike back against Iran?
First of all, we don't allow Israel. We advise Israel, and there's nothing going to happen today. We'll talk about that later.
I love that. And he's telegraphing Israel's punches while saying that we don't allow Israel, we advise Israel. When clearly this is all about greenlighting Israel. And we're in discussions about terror attacks. Very reminiscent of the Nord Stream pipeline attack, huh?
I mean, the fact that he can just talk casually about possibly bombing a foreign country's oil facilities, and then he can't even finish the sentence. He just trails off with anyway. I think that would be a little anyway. Everything's just so casual. Yeah, we're gonna go we're talking about committing a massive act of state terror. Anyway.
He always does that when he knows that he says too much or he's going somewhere. I think that's what he said when he was asked about the photos of beheaded babies. He said, I've seen photos and anyway, and then he walked off stage.
Yeah.
But it's
or when he
worth
said Israel's death toll in Gaza was over the top. That's how he described it. Israel's gone over the top. And he also said that they had carried out indiscriminate bombing, but doesn't arrive at any moral conclusion from that. He just casually mentions it and then just trails off and moves on to something else, as if it's totally normal for him to be arming a country that he's acknowledging is committing indiscriminate bombing.
I sometimes forget Biden's president.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
There's just such a void there, and he's so hard to find these days. But here's a more presidential moment from Biden, equally revealing. This is about attacking energy infrastructure.
There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it. There will be no longer.
And that too caused massive economic damage that made the lives of Americans much harder, along with the sanctions Biden imposed on Russia at a time when the U.S. had been relying on Russian oil imports to offset the imports it was no longer getting from Venezuela and Iran because of U.S. sanctions, which contributed to inflation, which is a major campaign issue, but no one will talk about that in any discussion of inflation. And so here's someone who could have just organized and imposed a ceasefire on Gaza when the conflict was so much smaller. last year. It could have been done last year. And it would have screwed Netanyahu over and toppled his coalition. And now, a year later, Netanyahu is almost openly campaigning for Donald Trump, doing enormous damage to Biden's base, or the support of Biden's successor from its base, joined at the hip with Donald Trump's top donor, Miriam Adelson. And Biden is again indicating that he will support more wreckage to the global economy because he simply can't authorize a ceasefire. And why is that? Why is that? It all boils down to one thing, in my view. The Zionist billionaire class has him by the short and curlies, and he's depending on them for campaign cash, and that's all that matters. All that matters is winning. By the time they get in, if they somehow pull it off, Kamala Harris gets in, the United States could be directly at war with Iran. How could anyone who opposed the Bush administration going into Iraq support this? How could they support this? I mean, this is going to be so much more catastrophic.